Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel and I were just laughing before we got started because we're going to do another show talking about manifestations, and we were like shaking our heads just like Joel said, didn't we just do this one last week? but we found an interesting twist on it that we're going to do today, kind of on the same theme, but we're going to look at it a little bit differently from the way most people often do when they're looking at this topic, because both of us recognize manifestations are continuous. They just are ongoing. They never stop. The idea that we can't manifest is ridiculous because everybody, I don't care who you are, we're all manifesting all the time. The only real challenge is sometimes we're manifesting stuff we really didn't want, but hey, we're still manifesting. It's there. It's coming. And Joel came up with an interesting idea. So what if we talk about how do we slow down the manifestation? Now there's a challenge. That's a great challenge. What brought that? Do you know what brought that to your mind?
No clue. You know my brain. I have no idea.
Well, you're just so ADHD, so I figured there must be something there. You could just say,
there probably was, but that was like 19 seconds ago. So, so that's like long gone. But
yeah, I hear you. But still, it's a cool topic. It's a very cool
topic. A cool topic because so many people are manifesting what they don't want. And so when you hear that, how do you slow down your manifestations? People automatically, why would I want to slow down my manifestation?
Yeah, right. Where did that come from?
Yeah. But when you're in this negative spiral all the time and you're always manifesting the negative stuff, so let's look at it that way. One of the things I like to reverse engineer with people is when people tell me, well, positive thinking doesn't work. And I'll say, well, how about negative thinking? Does that work? And it does. It works.
It works beautifully.
It invites a lot of things. And most people can see that when you're stuck in that negative loop. They can't see it the other way. So we're going to do that same theory here.
Yeah.
Understanding that, you can't help but manifest. Last week, I spoke about my famous lacrosse ball, which has disappeared somewhere. But it'll come back. Trust me.
I know it will.
But that was such a specific thing, and there was no intention to manifest it. So, having the stuff I've always set out to get, I learned that it's so efficient that I'm sort of on this cruise control with it. I just think about it and then move on, and then oh, here's a lacrosse ball I didn't even know I was going to break. Yep. It's life gets that way, but where it's dangerous is when that negative internal dialogue has been negative for so long that you are constantly negatively attracting the things that you're feeling and vibrating at. So how do we slow that down? So for some people, we have to start with slowing down the negative manifestations before they can begin the positive. Now there's a simultaneous route to add positive while reducing the negative. Right. But when you're in a constant state of everything's going wrong, woe is me, the sky is falling, my health is terrible, I don't have a relationship, I lack money, I can't be happy. Those things are you literally are just programming the brain to manifest or to send out the energy waves of that. So the vibration of that goes out, and yes, it hits you right back in the face. And then that's when you say, well, the law of attraction doesn't work. Well, that's when the law of attraction is real evident that it works really well.
Yes.
Because you just spoke it into existence. And that's really important to understand. So the ideas that we, and there's people out there that probably are going to stop in maybe for a few seconds and go, okay, whatever. And they're gone already. So we got rid of them.
Yes.
But
thanks for dropping by. But
So I made a post this week on Facebook about just the general concepts of law of attraction and how this works. And I used AI, had a really good explanation. I stayed up Friday night, the other night, till 3 a.m, me and AI talking. And it's as ADD as I am, I figured out. And so it wouldn't quit asking me questions. I couldn't quit answering them. So there we go. But it was
that's
very
one of the
fun.
fun things about AI, because it's supposed to be the other way around. We're supposed to ask AI questions, but it's interesting when you really get to know it. It has all kinds of curiosity.
Especially the Grok version. That one is intended to ask you follow-up questions.
Okay.
And then the more it gets to know you, the more it really asks questions.
I haven't played with that one. Which manufacturer is that one? I don't know which one that is.
It's one of Elon Musk's.
Oh,
It's
okay.
his AI. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
GROK.
Because I haven't messed with that one at all. I do most of mine with ChatGPTs.
I love ChatGPT is my go-to, but for
I love that one.
conversational things, I like Grok.
Yeah, well, I get into the same kind of conversation with ChatGPT, and I get the same kind of thing. ChatGPT grilling me.
Sure, yeah, it does me too. But it's like I get more professional stuff out of ChatGPT than my own personal pursuit with Grok.
Yes,
If that makes
sense.
sense.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
So,
but I'm loving this because I'm remembering my own challenges with LOA when I first encountered the concepts. First of all, the secret. Well, I encountered the concepts before, but the secret was kind of when everything was kind of coalescing together. And that came out in 2006, and I saw it around 2007. So that's when I was starting to kind of grasp it a little bit. And I realized really quickly, really early, that manifestation works both ways. And when I realized that, I said, I am terrified because of how much attention I give to the negative. How do I stop that? I mean, I literally felt like there was a tidal wave coming in, and now it wasn't just my imagination. It was actually there because I had a law that was telling me how it was coming.
And ironically, being terrified increased the negative multiplier there.
So more than ironic. I mean, it was guaranteed.
Yeah. So when you do that, like you're saying, when we get there and you make that realization that so much of our dialogue is anticipating the negative to happen. It's like, woe is me. I can't believe this happened to me again. This always happens. When people say, let me knock on wood. Okay, well, that's, again, you're signaling to the universe that, wow, that was a one event versus, something good happened, versus the idea that you're in charge of all of it, whichever direction you want to go. Does that not mean, and when people get to this point, am I suggesting that nothing negative ever happens to me? Absolutely it does. I'm a human being. Things happen. But I've learned to understand my power exists in how I feel about what happens, how I react to what happens. That's where my power is. And there's some things that I've learned to they're minimal, and I don't put a lot of energy into them. I laugh or whatever, and I'm able to quickly reverse. And then there's things like, when you have a major tragedy or trauma or a loss of a loved one, that's a real negative component that you don't have to, I don't want you to feel that you can't grieve that, or, you're putting, because there is a connection. When I lost my son, TJ, I fully grieved. I didn't try to stop my grieving. I fully grieved. I thought about him a lot. It was very sad about missing, but by doing that, I was able to work my way up from I can't believe he's gone, I can't believe he's gone, this isn't fair, to we had such a great time together. That's why I'm missing him. Then eventually, right now, doesn't mean I still don't get sad thinking about it occasionally, but I quickly go to the joy he brought to my life, the laughter, his inability to remotely understand sarcasm, and my inability to quit being sarcastic was hilarious. So
it's the little things like that that make it so worthwhile. Absolutely.
So you can control it by shifting. So your energy, that's the ultimate goal. But sometimes you are going to be negative, but it's not the key is not to get stuck in it. That narrative that everything is falling apart all the time and my health is poor. See, when your health is poor, when your perspective of your health is poor, then you're going to respond as a person in poor health. You're not going to be active. You're going to sit around, which is going to exacerbate your perception of not being in poor health. The body isn't intended to function without movement. All that stuff gets stuck. So the narrative that you're in poor health, it makes it far worse. It does increase your poor health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you met a former co-host, David Strickle. He's a channeler. Did you ever meet him? I think you did one time.
Probably, yes.
I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, David is really, really good at maintaining high vibration. If he wants to, he can do it literally all the time. About 2 years ago, something like that, he came onto my show, and he's talking about how he's been maintaining this high vibration, and then he just did this little dip of the toe into the negative, just a little brief one, but it was one that said, basically, I want to experience some negative vibration again. I haven't experienced it in a while. 3 months later, his house burned down. So, I mean,
Wow.
stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
The difference, and this really feeds in beautifully to what you were talking about. The difference is it didn't bother him.
Of course not. Yeah.
It didn't bother him at all. And in fact, I think it was just a few weeks ago, I heard from him that the whole house has been rebuilt and it's even more beautiful than it was before.
Yeah.
But the point is, he didn't let it bring him down. And so he didn't stay. He didn't live in that space. I think that was the word you were using. He didn't choose to just dive in and stay in that low negative vibrational space.
Yes. I've shared this example, this real life scenario before on the show, but it supports what David did. So I have, again, this is a synchronicity, I think, that just was a lesson for me. I have two separate clients that are not related. They live in separate cities, and this is years apart.
Mm-hmm.
So they both had homes. They both were fully insured. Both of their homes burned down. One was in Florida, but struck by lightning. The other was an electrical problem with the other one, right? They both lost everything, but were fully insured. There were no pets that were killed. There was nobody that was injured.
Mm-hmm.
The fire was put out safely. There were no firefighters hurt. So I'm laying that groundwork. The scenarios were shockingly the same.
Mm.
One of them had a perspective of, this is the greatest trauma I've ever experienced. I was debilitated by it, took off work for a couple months, and seeing a psychiatrist, got on medication.
Wow.
And I mean, it really affected him. And it is traumatic to be in your house when it burns down. He got out. The other guy called me and said, bro, I want to get all this money. And he said, I've been wanting to move forever. And this is like the law of attraction saying, get you out of there. So not only was he able to get the full price, the fully insured value of his home, and then he said, and then the contents was way more contents than he really had, but they just sort of paid it.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't have to pay a real estate. And then he moved, got this beautiful home. He moved. Then he found out I still own the lot. Then he got another $100,000 because somebody bought the lot from him. So
wow.
This was one viewed it as one of, he said that was pivotal. He was able to change jobs. He moved to a new location. His life has greatly increased since the house burned down.
Mm-hmm.
The other one still will describe that as the most traumatic event of his life.
Yes.
And he's been stagnant and I haven't talked to him in a few years, but last I talked to him, he was just really deep on antidepressants and constantly in therapy about the trauma, waking up scared from that. Totally different responses to the same thing. Both are law of attraction examples in opposite directions.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're reminding me of a conversation I had with somebody I met recently. We had dinner together. Absolutely delicious food, by the way. But while we're eating this absolutely delicious food, we're talking about positivity, positive mental attitude, how that plays out in real life. She was telling me how she had basically acquired a property that was very, very near the beach, but it was a dump. The whole thing was it was ready to fall over at any moment. And she completely rebuilt it and never saw it as something that had to stay a dump. She always saw it as something that was going to get better and better. And today she has this wonderful house worth so much money that she gets offers on it all the time.
Right.
Because she's like within a minute from the beach. So she has like the perfect location. And she has no intention of selling or anything like that. But mental outlook made all the difference, because if it hadn't been for her mental outlook, she never would have built it the way she did.
Yeah.
She never would have gone through what she went through, because she went through a lot of trauma to make the whole thing happen. It was her mental attitude that got her through it. And what we both touched on this a lot in the conversation. Look at the choice that was involved.
Yes.
Everybody, we kind of skip this when we look at people who are going through horrible traumas or going through challenging times or going through good times. Choice abounds. No matter what situation we're in, we all have a choice. In fact, you wrote quite famously, among people who know you wrote about your choice when you were sitting on a bench back in the 1990s. And it was a choice of literally life and death.
Yes.
And you had a choice to make, and you made your choice.
I made my choice, and I sat there for a long time and decided, okay, if I'm going to do this. And once I made that choice to do it, then everything that came after that was, I had to learn the law of attraction was working strongly in my life, definitely in the wrong direction. And So I had a lot to reprogram there, but I didn't even know that term back then, law of attraction. This was, before this, right around The Secret, but I was not remotely in tune to reading a book about The Secret at that point.
Right. Right.
I was trying not to die,
Yes.
and, yeah. So, but yes, you're right. That choice became, and if we were to take the long route of me telling you the entire everything that happened from that choice, it's unbelievable. It just doesn't make sense. It's like when you would tell it, when I tell it, if people didn't know it to be true and see me along the way, it doesn't seem believable.
It doesn't, but it
No.
also illustrates the importance of choosing what it is you really desire rather than choosing to focus on what you don't desire.
Yes, exactly. And one of the concepts that I have a really good friend was telling me the other day, his big thing has been relationships. He's just definitely been looking, and he's 58, and he's really under the concept that, well, I'm older, the apps don't work for me because it's blah blah blah, and there's a bunch of negativity about his perspective in looking to date. And we were talking quite a bit about it, and over time I was hearing him talk about his neighbor a lot, and said, well, I got to go take my neighbor to the store. Her car broke down. That's okay. And then I'm hearing like, yeah, we went out to dinner last night, and then eventually I started saying, who is this neighbor?
Yeah, right.
And he's like, well, it's just we're just friends. She lives by me. She's divorced. She had a couple of kids, and and I said, okay, but we're just really good friends. I said, but it sounds like you're really good friends. And I said, is it possible you have manifested this and you just are refusing to see it? Well, she's younger than I am. She has kids. I said, but you love kids. Yeah, these are great kids. I like the kids. I'm like,
where's the issue?
Yeah, where's the issue? I said, is it possible? Because I like that. I always ask, is it possible? When really I'm telling you this is what's happening. But
fair question. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it possible that your frustration in manifesting what you want, what you desire, is already there? And the law of attraction said, hey, I've already given you this. You just got to open your eyes. And so he very much like, this will be so awkward because you never thought about it. And so finally they were doing something. She had some event or something. He was helping her with that. And he said, you want to grab some lunch? And he goes, yeah. She goes, yeah, we'll grab some. And they get lunch often. He goes, but no, would you like to grab some lunch? And she's like, yeah, I'll grab some lunch. He goes, well, he was trying to say, he's look, I'm saying this pretty awkward. Can I take you out to lunch? And she said, well, then finally she caught on, and she goes, are you awkwardly trying to ask me out to lunch? And he goes, yeah. And she goes, that was so awkward, but the answer will be yes either way, but it was exceptionally awkward. Now they're not, and they're in the initial stage. I'm not sure that's going to go anywhere or not, but just opening up to the idea. One of the things I ask people to check is when you don't believe you're manifesting what you want, make sure you're seeing all that is there, what is already there, because there's a tendency to overlook what is there.
Yeah.
There's a tendency to go fish on the other side of the lake where more fish are, and then the other people on the other side of the lake come to your side of the lake to fish because there's more fish where you're at from their perspective. So
that's right. There
is a lot of that. So you not only ask what you want, vibrate on the level of what you want, but half the battle, it isn't the art of allowing. I'm trying to kill all. It's sort of the art of accepting what is given to you. Accept it. It's there.
Yes.
And not, overlooking it. You, in no way with this neighbor that you've been friends with for a few years, and they just were doing more and more stuff together, and it never date stuff, but it was, hey, the kids are sick at school. I'm out of town, or their dad's out. You go get the kid. He just sort of fit in,
Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. And in fact, I can kind of identify with it in a sense because, as you know, I'm 2.5 years divorced, 2.25 years divorced now. And during that time, I've been paying more and more attention to, how can I find a partner? Because I really do want to have a partner. And I was kind of starting to get into that mindset like you were talking about, and there's nobody out there. I can't find anybody. The apps are no good, all that kind of thing. And I was certainly getting lots of feedback from other people that I met who've experienced very much the same thing.
Yes.
Then it occurred to me, I'm a dancer. You know that about me. I love going to dances. I love going to social dances. I'm actually one of the most popular leaders, one of the most popular male dancers because I'm a really good leader. And I can say that with no ego because I get plenty of feedback that tells me I'm a really, really good leader.
You're definitely high level at what you do. I know that'd be a fact.
Yeah, it's true. And I know I'm good at it.
Yeah.
And as a result, I get lots of female attention.
Yes.
Now, do I think about that? Had I been thinking about that in terms of finding the mate? Not really. I hadn't been. But you know what? I get a lot of female attention. And in fact, very positive female attention. So I asked myself, well, then why am I not finding the right person? And I realized it's not them, it's me. I'm too damn picky. I have very specific things I'm looking for. I haven't found it yet. So, well, she's not out there.
and the concept of getting the essence of what you want. We talked about that, I think, in the last week or two. Getting the essence, Playing the Matrix by Mike Dooley uses an example of a little boy wanted a specific bicycle that belonged to another person.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And he is, he's like, I want it. And his dad's like, you can't have that bike because somebody else has it. We can get you one mostly like it, probably identical on some level, but it won't be that bike.
Right.
It's so when you set out to do something, you got to, what matters. So when you're manifesting, like, to me, in a partner or relationship, I love humor. I have to have somebody that can understand everything. Not everything is a joke to me, but I do use humor a lot for things. So if you're going to not understand humor, then I'm probably not great to be there, because I just, I will find humor in everything. So I could be serious.
I love about you.
Yeah. I also, I want complete trust. I want somebody that I can trust completely. When I was younger, it was solely based on attraction to their appearance. As I've gotten older, while appearance and taking care of yourself is important to me, it is not number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, it's there, but it's not near there. It's more about, I want somebody that can understand. I also am someone who, I don't want to feel like I'm punching a clock in a relationship. I don't want to, me, if I decide I want to get up and fly down to Florida, I want to do that.
That's right.
And now I'll certainly inform somebody and invite them to go, but I'm not going to, not go because so I need that. So I know the things that I want, and being aware of that, I'm not actively looking for a relationship, and which, by the way, is my most, I probably run across 5 women a week at the gym that I talk to that I clearly could just connect with.
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly. It's obvious.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm attracting it, even though I specifically don't necessarily want to get into it.
Yes. And it's a great example of that. I love that.
Yeah.
In fact, I also love how you were talking about the fact that you aren't consciously trying to meet these women.
Yes.
You're not consciously trying to bring them in. They're just there.
Yeah.
They're just there, and they're there effortlessly.
Well, you mentioned going to dance. I go to the gym. My dance floor is the gym. So
the gymnasium, right?
Yeah, same thing. So what I don't like about the apps, we talked about this a few times. The apps boil it down to a picture and a clever quote.
Basically. Yeah, pretty much.
That's what's at the end of the day. That's where we're at.
Yeah, that's it.
So what you miss is the person's energy. The positivity. I always say when I walk into a room, I want to raise the level of energy to match mine in the room. I try to present that way.
You do.
That doesn't translate over an app.
Not well. No.
Not well. So go to the places where you are comfortable. You'll find like-minded people having like-minded things. And that's where you're going to manifest. That's what you're realizing. You're going to attract there. It doesn't do any good to get on the apps because you're wanting different than what the apps offer. You're wanting a connection. You find a connection with like-minded people. If you're adamant chess player, you'll go to chess tournaments and you'll meet. But whatever your thing is, go to that, and then look, attract, look around, see what's going on. There's, like I said, I'm not saying this in an arrogant way, but I speak to everybody, I'll talk to everybody, no matter who you are, and I meet several women. I know of so many women. I belong to all these gyms, them, and they're like, you have the best energy. You have this, and you make that connection. And
I believe
if
it.
I wanted to pursue it more, I could, but most of the time I just sort of shut that down because I don't have time for that right now.
I hear you. Yeah. And I love what you said about how you're no longer interested in the looks. I'm very much the same way. In fact, for me, honestly, if I see someone who is, quote, gorgeous looking according to typical standards, I become immediately suspicious. Like, okay, what's really going on with this person? I like doubt it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So I probably have to work against myself.
Yeah, there's a whole science behind that. But we can't. Yeah, it's really called bro science, but I don't want to get into that right now. But there, I have been around attractive people, and again, being in the gym my entire life, and people that take care of themselves. I've been around tons of attracted women for the years. You get, and there's attraction is attractive is also based on perspective, but clearly some very attractive women. But when I understood that usually some of these like extremely attractive women, I very seldom vibe with their energy. I couldn't connect with their energy.
Yes.
And I've said some, again, I've met some very beautiful women that their energy is what I'm most attracted to. And even though they were pretty, they were the right energy. And then I could go for that. But when I was younger, everything was attraction based. I was a good looking, strong young man, and I dated really attractive women. It's always been there. But after a while, I realized that's that attraction. The biological reason for attraction in the beginning is just to connect you biologically, where you guys will produce more kids.
Right.
That's what the world needs to survive.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But for a relationship to continue, the looks, everybody's looks are going to fade to some degree. And what is like I told a couple I was working with yesterday, I met on Sunday, and they were like, when they got together, they got married. She was, the wife was he thought it was very cute. She never could decide where they wanted to go eat.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Where do you want to go? And so it was he used to laugh, said, she never knows, I always have to pick. Well, that's cute while you're dating.
Yes.
After 3 years of marriage, after 3 years of marriage, it's no longer cute.
No.
It's like, can you decide where to eat? It's like,
just pick something, please.
Something, anything. I don't care at this point, but this is exacerbating to me.
Yes,
and then the other thing was, if you want it, please order it and not eat it off my plate. Which now, again, those were very cute things when they're dating. But as time goes on, they become, so that's sort of the point. Your attraction eventually, if it's done properly, you're attracted to somebody often by looks. Then it merges into a deep connection, an emotional connection where you get to know the person. I have that's probably not something to share on the side. Anyway, but deep emotional connection where you can finish each other's sentences and look at them and know what they're thinking. I have a friend that it's definitely not romantic or anything. We've been friends for a long time, but we know each other so well. Like, I forget where we're going. She said, I know you left your tickets on the table. I'm like, damn it. Because I did. She just knew me. I walk out the door with my tickets, whatever we're doing. Did you got the tickets? You got them? I'm like, yeah, I do. She reminds me of that. So the idea that you get to know somebody so well, or like, okay, we're going to have a conversation, but Joel's going to go on a 30-minute adventure in the discussion. And we're going to talk about every side detour you can before we get to that. She knows that.
Like a podcast episode.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, finding those people, and I'm grateful to have her as a friend. I mean, it's somebody that I'm really attracted as a friend that I find very valuable in my life. So these are the things that, when sticking to the topic or touching on the topic, control, instead of slowing manifestation, which again is a catchy sound, but also maybe making sure you're manifesting in the right direction. Don't mismanifest, so to speak. Don't manifest what you don't want, that which so many people do, and they don't see it, and they think the other side is ridiculous. Well, no way positive energy or positive thought is going to change my life at all. And I've had somebody recently send me an email. They either listened to this or heard me on something else. They didn't identify where. And I usually ignore the hater emails. I find them funny. But this one I need to answer. This I don't know if it's a male or female. Said, "Do you really believe your bullshit?"
Okay.
And I said, "It changed my life. It changed everything."
Yes.
I said, "So I don't need you to believe it. And the only reason I respond to your email, I'm not defending it. I don't give a damn whether you believe it or not. It's irrelevant to me. But I'm telling you, this changed my life for the better. If you knew where I was and where all that story stuff is not me lying, that's where it's at." So I'm wholly authentic in my belief in this. I don't back down from it. I don't try to minimalize it. It's my guiding post to live. I believe it with all my heart, and I really do.
By the way, just a little aside, because you made reference to what happens when one person can't decide about, what restaurant to go to. And that was literally me, actually, for quite some time. But when I was married, a thing that Louise and I would find often is we'd sit down to in a restaurant at a table, and we'd see the menus, and they'd come and tell us what the specials were. And one of us would say, "Ooh, I'm going to have that." And the other one would say, "But that's the one I was going to have." It's like we couldn't even allow ourselves to have the same one because we're on the same wavelength.
Well, exactly. Yeah. When you realize that, especially when people are entwined and connected, even though it doesn't, it's not necessary to have somebody to assist you to manifest. You can manifest whatever you need. But it is amplified to some degree when you're in tune with someone and that energy is in the right direction. So it gives it, I think, a more powerful. And maybe it can't be more powerful because it's so powerful setting alone.
Yeah. But impactful. How about that?
Impactful is another way of looking at it. So,
right. Yeah.
And Esther Hicks talks about that in either Law of Attraction or Ask It Is Given.
Right.
How you don't need anybody. The problem with having somebody sort of co-manifesting with you is if they're not on the exact same page, you'll be manifesting different things.
Yes. And it's only a problem if you think that's a problem. That's the other thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so just having that ability to what matters, what do you really want in your life, what are you attracting in your life that you don't want, because it's all that. That's the answer. What's ever in your life, and this is where the sort of the newcomers to law of attraction take a side turn. You didn't necessarily attract the negative stuff you that you're aware of. You didn't want it for sure, but you did attract it.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a pill
that's actually a good segue, because I want to bring it back to what you and I came up with originally for a topic, which is how do you slow it down?
Yes.
Because that's why we ended up talking about the fact that we have a tendency to easily manifest the stuff that we go negative on. Why? Because we give so much attention to the negative. That's why it's so much easier.
Yes.
But it is a challenge to slow it down, especially if you're on a negative turn or like a negative lifestyle even.
Well, there's a conditioned response where people who overthink and the negativity. So you can sit and stew on something for a long time. And it's
very good at that. Yes.
It becomes almost an addiction. You have an internal dialogue debating.
Yep.
People that break up, I often deal with this. And the person, my client comes in, they've had a very traumatic breakup. They're very much in love with it. And they spend the first multiple days replaying the breakup conversation in detail. What did she mean by that? Can I get some closure from her? Can I?
Right.
It's I was going to say funny because there's nothing funny about it, but there's this odd connection to almost everybody doing the same thing.
Yes.
Like, I just need to know what this, and I tell them in the beginning, you're not going to know, maybe ever, but certainly not for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to, you're going to have to accept this is where it's at, and you're not going to get the closure explanation that you want right now.
And that was what you told me. I needed to hear that when Louise and I split, when she left. I needed to hear that very much. And it was the most impactful, to use the word again, it was the most impactful thing that anybody said to me during that period. And it's the one I took away, like, okay, that's where I throw my anchor in. That now I have a way to actually regain my footing just by having that thought in mind.
Yeah, you broke up there for a second, but is that something I told you? Or is that?
Yeah, that's something you told me. I contacted you the day after.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I thought that was one of the things I told you, because I tell everybody that.
Yeah. And it was the best thing that I heard. I mean, I got some great advice. I reached out to all my friends who are therapists and coaches and so forth, and I got wonderful support. But that was the one thing that was better than anything else I got, because it just refocused me.
Yeah, when you accept it's just not going to be there, so that takes some pressure off. Now you can anchor on the other stuff, and eventually you got some answers you didn't know. But
it was actually, what you said was quite prophetic, because there were a few things I never found out.
Never found out.
Yeah,
and
likely never will.
Right, and it just that's the important piece when we're looking forward to things, is understanding the flow, the direction of how we're thinking. And the brain has a bias toward negative. It's been it's handed down. It's actually genetic in a lot of ways. It's
cultural too. I mean, our culture drives it.
Yeah. Well, I use the analogy back in the day where you're the caveman people. Okay. Caveat, I always say this: I am aware that dinosaurs did not exist when man existed. However, for my story, they do. Okay.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
So you're a caveman guy, and you're just starving. There's a pond 50 feet from your cave, and you know that every creature on the planet is around that pond, eating and drinking and waiting for food to come, and your food.
Right.
So you have to get to a place of you're conditioned to be worried. Every sound you hear is conditioning. And so for this story, we have Hug and Ugg. There's two sisters, Hug and Ugg. They're twin sister caveman people. They're cave woman people, actually. So they're like, we're starving. We got to get water. We're going to go to the pond to get there. Now, Hug is happy, smiling, always looking at the bright side. Ugg is looking for every detail of what could go wrong. Every sound is. So they go to the pond, and they get there, and there's a sound that Ugg hears instantly and runs. Hug is just looking around, and the dinosaur eats Hug. So we evolve, and the happy genes in Hug were eaten up by a dinosaur.
I love that theory. That's fabulous.
And the negative bias protective stuff is supported by evolution. And so it was necessary for hundreds of thousands of years of development for that to take place. And then all of a sudden we get in today's world, that DNA programming is still there. To be conditioned to it's handed down. It's part of what we download, and to undo that seems so unnatural, because we no longer are threats with dinosaurs. There's no longer a threat. Going to Trader Joe's to get some food has no threat except the parking lot of any Trader Joe's, if you know what that means.
Or perhaps the freeway. Other than that,
yeah, their parking lots are terrible. I think they intentionally designed them terribly on purpose. The store's fantastic, but the parking lot's terrible. But there's no danger, but yet. We can be suspicious. We can be have panic attacks. We can do that. So just being aware that evolution supported the negativity or the protectiveness or the fear and of what could go wrong. So what we're having to do, we were having to override some of that and say, but what could go right? Hug was looking for what could go right, but she got ate. She was eating.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a really brief, ridiculous example, but that's sort of how we got here.
There's some truth to that too. I mean, obviously, like you said, there were no dinosaurs and cavemen at the same times, but that saying that ruins the story. So we'll just pretend that they were there.
Yeah, yeah. Just go with me. That my brain, in my brain, it all takes place that way. So
it doesn't really matter, because the point is the story itself is instructive.
Yes.
It tells us a lot about where our fears come from. And it also points out something very important. Just because you're in a positive frame of mind doesn't mean you will never manifest something negative. And just because you're in a negative frame of mind doesn't mean you will never manifest anything positive.
Great point.
What's that?
That's a great point. And even a step further, sometimes the initial belief you manifested something negative turns out to be the biggest positive you ever had in your life.
Mm-hmm. This is true.
So it's just understanding the process. It's almost like stay tuned. There's another chapter here.
And there's actually, I can actually give a reason why this plays off. That I'll tell you. This is how I understand. This is the one that makes sense to me. Why is it that we can be in a negative frame of mind and have something positive? Why is it we can be in a positive frame of mind and have something negative? And that's because it's not linear. It doesn't happen in order. Thought, event, thought, event, thought, event. It's thought, event, thought. It's a mixture. So when you say, well, I was in a positive frame of mind and I got a negative, my question is, okay, when were you in the negative frame of mind?
Yes. Yeah.
Because there's where it actually came from. It just wasn't linear. It wasn't all lined up perfectly, because it never's lined up perfectly.
Well, and as you know, I've used the example when the company that I was working for when I first met you, we first interviewed you, was an addiction treatment center.
Right.
That I moved up from South Carolina to work at. And that was
the second one too, which was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is literally the perfect treatment center for. I came up here to retire at that treatment center.
Wow.
That was my point. 5 years into it, the owner was really obnoxious, but I could manage him, and I didn't really care. I had an incredible team. I loved my job. We were doing great work. I was not saying this arrogantly, but I may be the first person to ever bring the law of attraction into an addiction treatment center.
I will actually defend you on that one, because I remember when I started the podcast trying to find somebody who was into therapy and into law of attraction. You were the only one I could find.
Yeah.
And I looked extensively.
Yes.
So yes, not just in your area. I mean, like everywhere.
Yes. So that, and now a lot of people do it, by the way, but that was something that we had. So this job was pretty much on cruise control. I was going to retire. Like I said, I was making good money, other than the owner being a little odd and confrontive all the time. I could handle him. And so one Saturday I got a call from him, and there was a minor little thing, and he was screaming at me, and I was not in the mood to be screamed at that morning, and or any morning. And basically it got to a point. He tells the story where he fired me. I tell the story where we quit. We probably said it at the same time.
Probably.
Didn't matter. And there was a moment like, oh my God, I just lost this really high paying job, this security.
Sure.
And it was like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? I obviously let my anger get up. I was dissecting, and then I immediately got to, I knew, because I was pretty much into the law of attraction at that point. And I read, wait a minute. This is going to work out. This is going to work out beyond my belief. I mean, and ironically, if you know my whole story, I won't get into that right now, but where I figure out things is my bench down in Florida. That's what my book's about, where I go sit on this bench. I mean, this happened on Saturday. On Tuesday, I had a flight scheduled to go to Florida anyway.
Right.
So I just said, I'll just wait till I get down to the bench. And when I got down to the bench, I got a call from a friend of mine who found out what happened. He said, look, you got an office in my office suite. Come work with me. I'll send you all the patients you can handle.
And I love the part, you left it out just now, but I love the part that you've often told about how he said you could be a life coach. And you said, what's that?
I don't, what, as far as I know, and I always like to be accurate, I think I was by far the first life coach in Richmond. There's a lot
wouldn't
now.
Be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the time, I didn't even really realize what that was. And, but his name, he passed away in 2017, but he was a dear friend and mentor, Dr. Sherman Master. And I went around and introduced myself to every doctor. And I just instantly, I mean, within a few weeks, I was going full blast and never looked back. I never had to advertise. I never had to worry about it. And since then, I've never It's all filled. I never have paid for a bit of advertising.
And I remember the first time you told that story to me on this podcast, which was, you know, some 11 and a half, 12 years ago, something like that. And the first time I heard it, I was like in shock. Like, do I really believe this? But this guy seemed, I mean, I like Joel. We've talked a few times. I'm starting to believe that he really is genuine. But how is that really possible? Now, over time, I became very clear that, okay, not only did it really happen, but this is actually normal behavior, not just in Joel's life, but in anybody's life. But when you're in a mindset that says things negatively work out, they work out to your disadvantage, and you have that on a regular basis, that's what makes it hard to understand something like that.
It does. And the parts that I also realized when I left that job, I had plenty of money. I was financially secure. I could have gone 3 years without making a penny and not even change my lifestyle. So there was, so when you don't have the pressure, it's easier to look at. In my mind, I had a couple years to get my practice fully going.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it would be going fully in a week or a month, really. But there was never any doubt that it was going to work. And, you know, and since then, my patients, my clients just show up. They just show up. And when, you know, one sort of graduates and moves on, I got a couple more to fill in, and we go from there. It's amazing. And I've been on that cruise control. That was 2013 when that happened. And that's 12 years ago.
12 years into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive. But it also is a great illustration of what does it take to change that experience.
Yes.
In other words, how do you slow it down? Well, the answer to how do you slow it down is you slow down the process that's getting you there in the first place with a thought process.
Yes. Yes.
And that's the hard part. I mean, when we're in the middle of that downward spiral, we're on that downward trajectory. That's the big challenge. It's a very hard challenge to overcome. You know, how do I change my mindset? Because everything I look at just seems so negative. And the answer, I remember the first time the answer really clearly came to mind. Not just came to mind, but it kind of resonated with me, and it really pissed me off because the answer was change where you give your focus.
Yep.
And my instant reaction was, "Oh, come on, that's so stupid."
Yeah, but it's so true.
It is.
And
which, by the way, is also what pissed me off even more.
Yeah. Well, the part that when people listen and the law of attraction is always in play. It is never turned off. You can't turn it off.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand that because it's always in play. Sometimes it's benign. You don't realize
face it. That's the thing. We don't want to have to face up to that because that means we're responsible for this.
Yeah. But once you really grasp, it becomes so incredibly simple. It isn't. You and I spent 2 or 3 early years of this trying to. We made it so damn complicated. Well,
we did get there.
We got there, but
you know, we had to go all the way around the houses to get there.
Well, but I think we were looking at you know, at some point. I think you said it can't be this easy, Joel.
It can't be this easy.
And I said I think it is, Walt. And it does work that way.
I really do.
Yeah. So so is there a moment in your journey with the law of attraction where I know how we evolved? Is there a moment where you just said, okay, that's it. That's the one that just sold me on the whole, or has it just been a gradual increase?
So yeah, it hasn't been one. In fact, I can't honestly say that I've even done learning it.
Okay.
I have mostly learned it. I have mostly absorbed it, but I still have my moments of doubt. So no, I don't really have one particular turning point, one particular tipping point that just kind of, you know, ended the whole debate for myself. I had to kind of do it kind of like water wearing away at a rock or at a foundation. Like I had to remove a little bit at a time and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then gradually, okay, yeah, I can kind of see it's eroding, but I'm not ready to buy into it yet, but it is eroding, and it's even eroding more. And it's ongoing. It's not a single event.
Right. And I think I've gotten to a place where it's just I don't pay attention to it anymore. It's just there. I know how it works.
I'm getting closer to that, and I'm happy about that. But I'm not.
I don't have to. It used to be I have to. Okay, let me manifest this. I just got to think about it.
Yeah, I don't try to manifest things anymore.
Yeah,
Well, no,
yeah,
it's not true. I occasionally just try to, but
yeah. Like to me in the beginning, I use a vision board and I use some of these other
yeah.
I'm not saying those things don't have value,
No.
but right now it's just like it's such a redundancy. I just like, okay, oh, I like that. I can just pretty much say I like that, and then somehow that's going to be presented to me at some point. It's it's one of my. I was talking to a dad of a client today. We're having a conference call, and he was trying to tell his daughter, who were at the conference call, said, "Honey, you just gotta you just have to visualize this and think about it." Now he doesn't know what I do to the level I do it, and she goes, "Dad, you're so far behind in this conversation. It's called the law of attraction, and we talk about it every week." Like,
you know the Harry Potter series, right? And there was also the movies that would go along with it. There's one scene, I don't remember which movie it is, but there's one scene where Professor Trelawney, who was like the seer into the future, and she was kind of a dingbat and so forth, and nobody really bought into her stuff. Everybody knew she was full of it and so forth. Interestingly enough, all of her predictions came true, and you don't really know that until the end of the novel, or the novels, I should say. But there's one scene that they played out in one of the movies, and I don't even remember which movie it is, but I love the scene. She's got a deck of tarot cards, and she's laying out the cards on the table. She's saying, well, this is this, and this is this. She's basically laying out the entire storyline of Harry and Voldemort coming to a point eventually where they have to go to war, and one's going to kill the other one. And this is long before book 7. So a lot of the details haven't been released to the, revealed to the reader yet. And certainly haven't been revealed to her. So she's going through the cards, and she lays the whole thing out, and she says, well, that can't be right. And she scoops it all up and starts all over again.
Yeah.
That's me. That's what I do. That's why I still have resistance points, because I'll get something that'll come my way, and I'll say, well, that can't be right. And I reject it. I mean, it's coming right to me. It's like, here's the information. And I say, no, that can't be.
and that's, the way I have gotten to this, and having had just, I'm one of these people. Once I firmly believe and I'm firmly there, I'm there. There's no, nobody can talk me out of it. I don't care if somebody tries, or I don't have to explain it. I don't feel like I need to defend it anymore. I used to want to debate it or whatever. It's like, okay, it doesn't work for you. Whatever. I don't need to convince you. A lot of people want to do the debate, like, well, you just got lucky or this or that. And I go, you hear the whole story. There's not a lot of luck involved in this. But
you're the luckiest man on the face of the planet, depending on how you want to measure luck.
That's right. But I find it ironic that if you ask me the first half of my life, at least to my mid-20s, like, I'm the most unlucky person. Terrible.
Yes.
If you ask me now, I don't know of anybody luckier than me.
Yes. I remember when
it's the same life.
On the earlier shows, one of the things that we did is we did a lot of exploration of your pre-LOA experiences, where you're going through the addiction and all the stuff that went along with that. You told me a story one time that really stuck with me about how, because I'd asked you, did you ever win with your gambling? And you told me the story about how you went to a dog track and you finally won a race. You couldn't believe it. You had like this long losing streak. You finally won it and found that you bought the wrong ticket. And to me, I love that story.
Yeah. It was like this. That was the example of my gambling. It was just so, I was anticipating early in my gambling addiction. I couldn't lose. I won and thought, I'm the best gambler in the world. I just, and then as time went on, I kept doing it. And then eventually the laws of statistics always come out in gambling, eventually.
Yeah.
And when I started losing, then I started spending more money to try to win bigger. And that cycle just kept continuing. I had the worst luck to the end of my gambling. If you gave me, I had no chance of winning whatsoever. And then at that point I realized, and I gambled many years after I realized I didn't have any chance of winning. Knowing what I know now, it's done. It's over. Because now I have a belief I can't win. There's no chance of me winning. Now, I have obviously worked hard. I've had a very successful career, so I have a lot of money now.
Yeah.
But it never was going to come from gambling. Gambling
Right.
never is going to be able to give that to me ever.
Right. Yep. You just had too much negative stuff going
Yeah.
on there. And that you want a tool, a trick for slowing down the manifestation. Hidden in that story is the trick. You took your mind off of that particular track. It just wasn't going to serve you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. So I want to pull one of the ultimate ADHD moments here.
Okay.
So going back in our conversation about 33 minutes ago, we were talking about people not, couples not agreeing on where to eat.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So when you were saying that, I had an idea that just got lost, but I'm going to throw it to you right now.
Okay.
You should create an app where you put the people can log in their 10, 15 favorite restaurants and have a algorithm where you won't repeat it. And couples will download it and they're able to load it in, spin the wheel, and it tells them where to eat.
That's an interesting idea. That's actually a very easy app to build too. I mean, just a simple random function.
I know. I hear so many people talk about that. You know, it's like, where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. I don't want to go there though. But have 10 places you both can agree on any given time. Have it where it can't double up and spin away.
I'll tell you a story. It's a little bit of a sad story, and we try to avoid doing that toward the end of an episode, but it's also instructive. So that's why I want to tell you about it. It's a story that got told by a researcher at one of the California university schools. I don't remember which one, but he was investigating people who have experienced brain damage, particularly brain damage to the emotional centers of the brain. And he had a very interesting experience with a patient that, I mean, on the one hand, if he kept doing it over and over again, we consider it to be abusive, but it was just something that happened this one time. I guess it happened a few times and he realized what was going on, so he stopped doing it. But he would ask the patient, would you like to go out to lunch? And the patient would, yeah, sure, I'd like to go out to lunch. Well, where would you like to go? The patient would say, well, there's such and such over there that's, they've got great food, but you're going to wait forever to get in there. Now, there's another one that's just down the road here that is very easy to get into, but the food isn't so good. On the other hand, there's one over across town that's got great reviews, but that one's always kind of hard to get into too. So it's probably not the best. And he would just keep going through the list like that. And the doctor would ask him, yeah, but which one do you want to go to? He says, well, I don't know. I mean, here are what the options were. What the doctor learned is that because the emotional center of his brain had been damaged, he couldn't tap into what he liked.
Yeah.
He couldn't tap into what.
Very common. Very common.
Yeah. And it's kind of tragic in a sense, but it's also very instructive.
It is.
Because what it really is saying is anytime that we're having trouble making a decision about what we want or don't want in our lives, it's because we have blocked off that emotional center in some way. So the trick to changing the way things work is to unblock the emotional center.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Completely. And that's part of the resistance to a lot of the law of attraction, that blocked emotional center.
That's right.
It really functions in that way. But as we're saying, the law of attraction is incredibly complicated until it's incredibly simple. It comes across as something that we're going to study, we're going to research it. And one of the, our Dr. Joe Vitale, who I paid for a certification in the law of attraction early in this process. It was a good deal because originally $99, but he sold it to me for $4.99.
Right. Yeah.
Which he's famous for. And while the information was accurate, it was just remedial.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, so I paid for a certification course that is basically the secret.
At best.
At best. And I'm a big fan of Secret. If that came out negative, I think the Secret is the ultimate entry level to this concept.
It is, absolutely, yeah.
It's perfectly done. But then I realized there's people buying this course, and the reason it's $4.99 is it's just it's nothing to it. I'm not. I mean, the guy makes a lot of money doing these kind of things. I'm not opposed to that, but it was just this idea that somehow I needed to take an advanced course in the law of attraction. When in reality, it just is what it is. There's no advanced courses at this.
I think that is the hardest challenge is realizing that it's a lot easier than we're treating it.
Yeah.
It's about the simplest thing that there is.
But the what makes it seem hard is exactly what we've been talking about the entire show.
Yes.
The other side of it is definitely been in play for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to see it. It's hard to understand it. And it's hard to break that negative manifestation, the opposite of what you want, because of the negativity that exists with that.
Well, hopefully we've been able to at least give people an idea about how to slow it down, because that was what we decided our topic was. Because that is really the starting point. That's how you kind of turn things around, just by shifting your mind process enough to not focus as much on the stuff that keeps bringing in the stuff that you really didn't want in the first place.
Absolutely.
So well done to us on that one. Good score. Now, next week, I promise you, when Jen asks me what I want the topic to be, my response is going to be a little bit different. My response is going to be, really, it could be anything, but don't make it about manifestation.
Yeah. Well, let's agree to a 2-month ban of the word manifestation.
A 2-month ban. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.